What's going on, YouTube? Welcome back to Chauvin's Garage. This is my 2001 Ford F250. It is currently rear-wheel drive from the factory, and today we're going to be converting it to a four-wheel drive, so stay tuned. What I've done is I have gone to the scrap yard and purchased a cut frame section out of another 2001 that was four-wheel drive, and the key to this four-wheel drive conversion is that the frame rails between the two-wheel drive models and the four-wheel drive models are the exact same. And what I mean by that is the frame rails for the two-wheel drive already have the cutouts and holes to receive the mounting brackets for the leaf springs, track bar, and your sway bar. So we're basically going to take everything off of the four-wheel drive chassis, and it will bolt directly up to our two-wheel drive chassis. The only thing we will need to do is grind the rivets out for the coil spring buckets and remove the brackets for your twin I-beams. With all that being said, I'm going to go ahead and start cleaning up some of these parts. It's a good opportunity while it's out of the truck to go ahead and replace what's worn out, and you might as well paint it up. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I will bring you guys back when it's time to remove the two-wheel drive suspension and start installing the four-wheel drive components. Alright, welcome back everybody. We got the axle all cleaned up, new axle shafts, universal joints. I went ahead and replaced the hub bearing assembly. All the parts are cleaned up, ready to go. I got new tie rods. We got new shocks for the front. Now going from a two-wheel drive to four-wheel drive, you will have to change the front brake hoses. They're slightly longer. Fairly inexpensive. I think I paid 50 bucks for the set. I did go ahead and order the Rough Country 2.5-inch leveling kit. A little bit taller springs, but the method's the same as if you were using stock springs. So I'll go ahead and show you what we got going on with the truck, and then we'll start working on pulling the I-beams out. Alright, so I've already gone ahead and pulled the cattle guard off the front, so to make it easy for you guys to see. I have already lifted the rear of the truck. The reason for that is my plan is to drive the truck up onto the ramps and put the jack stands probably somewhere in this area. That way the truck sits level while I'm trying to put the four-wheel drive front end in it, and I'm not fighting it. Like I said, I'm going to drive it up on the ramps. We'll set the jack stands, pull the front wheels off, and hopefully be able to just drop everything right out from underneath the front. So I'm going to get it up on the stands. Hopefully we'll have good luck. I'll bring you guys back, show you where to start. Okay, so I got the truck up on the ramps here. I have placed the jack stands underneath right there behind the radius arm brackets, and my plan is we're going to go one at a time here with the floor jack. I got the floor jack underneath the I-beam. We're going to raise it up take the front wheel off, and we'll be able to unbolt everything and have a controlled fall and drop it out from underneath. So we're going to go ahead and do that. We'll go ahead and take the bumper off so we have some extra head clearance. These are 18mm bolts, 4 of them. There's a nut plate on the back side, and if you have fog lights, you'll have to unplug those, and this comes completely off. So we're gonna go ahead and do that. Alright, so I got the front bumper, the wheel off, so now you guys can have a better view of what's got to be done. So first off, you got the sway bar. There's 2 bolts attached to the frame there. Obviously you got your coil spring. There's a retainer right here. You're gonna have to take the nut off the shock. Follow your radius arm. Back here you got the radius arm nut that's gonna come off. The bracket's got to come off. And then on your I-beams over here, they both mount to the belly right there. There's a bolt there, and there's a couple. We'll go ahead and remove the brackets on both these I-beams. So, and then obviously our steering. Go ahead and pull all this out. Very simple. There's not much to it. The hardest part will be getting these coil spring towers out. They're riveted in, so we'll have to take an angle grinder, grind those out, and then once those are out, the factory 4-wheel drive holes are actually behind it for the shock mount. So I'm gonna start taking this apart, and I'll bring you guys back if there's anything I see that I should point out. So alright, figured I'd bring you guys back real quick just to show you how everything's looking. I got this one almost completely out. As you can see, I just undid the bolt on the rear there up by the bracket. I kind of had to hammer it out because both of these dropping at the same time. This one was at an angle in the bracket. So if you just kind of hammer it right here, as you lower it, it comes right out. That one up there is undone, so I'm fixing to just drag this whole assembly out. Undid the brake line, unplugged your ABS. That's up behind the fender well right there. And this whole thing drops right out. Like I said, the retainer up top, and then your shock bolt on the top here. Everything just kind of drops right out. Take the tie rod end out and the sway bar link, and we'll get this out of the way. We'll go ahead and do the other side. Alright, so I have the front end completely out. As you can see, the only thing left is the coil spring buckets, and as I've mentioned, the rivets. There's 4 on top, 2 right here on the bottom. We got to grind those all the way down and punch them out, and then this whole bucket will come off. I went to Harbor Freight and picked up an angle grinder. It's nothing special, just a single speed, and I've got a 4.5-inch flapper wheel. It's a 36 grit, so hopefully we'll be able to remove them fairly quickly. As you can see over here, this is the 2-wheel drive assembly. So we're gonna go ahead and try to grind those rivets down, and I'll bring you guys back. Alright, so we're over here on the passenger side now. I got the driver's side off already. I just wanted to show you how I do these. You grind them right down flat with the bucket itself. You'll kind of see a ring around them. It's very faint, but you can see that ring. That's when you know you're all the way. And what you want to do now is take your hammer and your punch. You need a point on it like this one, if it'll focus. You just take your punch, and you want to put it right exactly in the middle, right here. And you go ahead and punch it with the hammer, make a pilot, and then you're actually going to drill them out. Start with 1/8 of an inch, drill bit, then work up to this one here. This is a let's see, this is a 5/16, then move up to your 13/32, and then finally your 15/32. And that's how I did it on the other side. You can see here I got it all painted up, cleaned up, but you can see no more coil spring. So I'm gonna do the same thing to this side, and then we'll start installing the four-wheel drive components. One last thing I want to mention is the brake hose right here is connected back here. There's a bracket holding a 11mm. You want to go ahead and take that off, or just be mindful that it's back there, so when you do pull the coil spring bucket off, don't let it fall, because it will bend that metal line. So if you want to wait to give yourself some more room till you get this off, that's fine. Just don't let it drop or you will bend that line. You don't want to have to replace that. So be mindful that that's back there. Aside from that, it's pretty easy. Okay, so we're back over here on the driver's side. First thing we're going to put in is probably the easiest, the shock mount for the four-wheel drive. And basically you just utilize these three right here. Very simple. Put the bolt through. There's a nut plate that goes on the back side, and these get torqued to 76 foot-pounds. So I'm going to go ahead and put these on both sides, and I will bring you guys back, and we'll do the leaf spring mounts on the front next. Okay, we got the shock mounts in. They're torqued to spec. One thing I ran into, it's not a big deal, is the inner fender liner. I had to trim it out to fit the top piece here. If you follow this seam right here, you can kind of cut around it, and it's not a big deal. Now, you know, you can put your shock on. So we're gonna move forward here to the spring hanger on the front. This is the spring hanger, and basically there's a bolt with a nut and a plate that's gonna go right here. These two here, there's two more bolts with a nut plate. They go up through the bottom of the frame right here. You can fish that nut plate up through this hole here forward and put the bolts through and tighten it down. And then the last three bolts on the front, you're going to have to remove the tow hook, and they go in between the frame and this guy right here. So I'm gonna go ahead and get these in. I'm not sure the torque specs on this. They were pretty tight when I pulled them off the four-wheel drive chassis, so you want to snug them up pretty good. I'm guessing maybe somewhere in the 100 foot-pound range, maybe 120. So we're gonna go with that and see how she goes. And yeah, I'm gonna get those in on both sides, and then we'll work our way to the back then and put the rear spring hangers in. Alright, so I got both the front spring hangers on. I ended up only torquing them to 90 foot-pounds. It felt plenty tight, and I didn't want to snap the bolts, so we're going to start with 90. These front three here for the tow hooks, when I took them out, they had red thread locker on just a couple of the threads about midway, so I put some more, I cleaned up the threads in the wire wheel, put some new thread locker on them. So those are all set. We're going to move back now. The next piece of the puzzle, these are the mounting blocks for the shackles on the rear, and they go up and sit inside the frame rail. So we'll go under there next. I got the light. The weather's not cooperating today, so I'll do the best I can with the light. Alright, so here we are underneath the truck on the driver's side. You can see just behind the fender, the inner fender liner here, there's a cutout, two holes, and there's two on the bottom side here. That's where this bracket's gonna go. It is a 15mm bolts. The flat side goes facing into the frame like this, and these get torqued to 76 foot-pounds. So we're gonna go ahead and put these in on both sides. See, it's the same over here. So 76 foot-pounds, you can put both of those in. Alright, so we got the rear blocks in for the shackles on the rear. I did forget to mention, I've already installed the blocks for the sway bar. They go right here. They look identical to the blocks for the shackles. These get torqued to 35 foot-pounds, and the flat side goes facing in towards the frame like I've mentioned. And you can see here on this side, the bolt goes through here and gets torqued as well. So next we're going to work on the track bar for the track bar, obviously the track bar mount. Very simple. There's 3 bolts that hold this to the frame, and I'll show you where this goes. On the driver's side here, if you look right here on the belly, just forward of that, there's 2 holes here, and there is one right here, and that's where this bar goes. It just kind of sets up there like this, and the bolts come through the bottom, and there's a nut plate that goes on top right here, this square hole on the frame rail. You set this nut plate in there like so, and you line those up with the 2 holes on the bottom here, and then you can send the bolts up through the bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and put the track bar in. They get torqued to 110 foot-pounds, and next we'll probably install the leaf springs. So let me get this in, and I'll bring you guys back. Alright, the track bar is in, as you can see, all torqued to spec. No issue with the steering. I left the stock, the 2-wheel drive Pitman arm on there because it actually has about 1.5 inch drop, maybe 2 inches from the factory 4-wheel drive Pitman arm, which will be perfect since I'm doing a 2.5 inch leveling kit, and since the bore of the tie rod end for the 4-wheel drive model and the 2-wheel is the same, it fits. So I'm just going to keep the stock Pitman arm. Moving forward, we're going to work on getting the leaf springs in now. I'm going to go ahead and hang the shackles. We're not going to tighten them. We're just going to leave everything loosely. The shackles go on the blocks back there. Yeah, pretty simple. Just put the bolt through. This is the top. The bottom hangs down like this. So I'm going to go ahead and put these in. Like I said, just leave them loosely for now. Then we'll hang the spring up here and leave everything loose until we get the axle in. Get everything aligned, tighten it up from the U-bolts, and then we'll start tightening things up. So I'm going to get these in and go ahead and hang the springs, and I'll bring you guys back. Alright, just a quick little thing I've run into. I wanted to show you guys, not a big deal. I got the rear of the spring hung, coming up to the front. I was getting ready to slide this out. The nut goes on the outside. And what I found is when I tried to push the bolt back through, it's hitting the block that holds this AC condenser, or whatever this is. Not a big deal. There's an 8mm bolt back there. I already removed it, and you can pull this down and out of the way, and then the bolt slides right out. Now you can put your spring in, then you can put this back in. Just don't lose this. so I got the axle in the truck. Nothing's real tight yet, just all you know, fairly loose. There wasn't much to it. You just you know, you got to line the dowels up on the axle at the bottom of the leaf spring, and then you know, put all 4 nuts and washers on the U-bolts and just snug everything for now. Next thing we're going to install is the track bar. It goes from here to the bracket right there, and those get torqued to a whopping 401 foot-pounds, which is larger than my torque wrench will go, so we're going to put the air impact on there and get it as tight as we can. But first we're just going to get it in there, get everything hooked up, and once it's all together, we'll torque the U-bolts first, then the track bar, and then finally the 2 bolts on the rear shackle there, and this one up here, and we'll be good to go. So I'm gonna get that track bar in, and we'll bring you back. All right, guys, we got the axle all in. Everything's good and tight. The U-bolts get torqued to 99 foot-pounds. We got those in. I got my brackets on for the dual steering stabilizer. 99 foot-pounds there. These get torqued to 185. Both of those as well, 185 foot-pounds. And that's pretty much it. I mean, it's all downhill from here. We'll put the steering and stuff on. We'll get the shocks in. The sway bar, we'll go ahead and hook that up. And aside from that, it's all very downhill. So I'm gonna go ahead and get the rest of it finished up, and I'll bring you guys back and show you how it looks. I'm really excited to see how it looks sitting on the ground on its own weight. So pretty soon. And here we are, guys. It is the next day. We finally got everything back in the truck. We got the sway bar in. 80 foot-pounds on the top, 80 foot-pounds on the bottom. The bracket that attaches to the axle tube gets torqued to 40 foot-pounds. Steering's all in. I did have to change the pitman arm, as you've probably seen the warnings I've added to the video. What was happening was 3/4 of the turn to the left, the bottom of the drag link was just barely hitting the bolt here for the track bar, so I did have to change it to a stock 4-wheel drive pitman arm. It wasn't a big deal. I just had to drop this bracket again, take the nut off there on the pitman arm. I put a puller on it, and it came right off. You do want to mark the shaft of the steering box, line it up with your pitman arm, so that way the new one goes on the same way the old one came off. Aside from that, really easy. All the tie rod ends get torqued to 67 foot-pounds, except for the drag link. The drag link attaches to the actual tie rod right here. That gets torqued to 144 foot-pounds. But it's all in, it's aligned. The truck rides excellent. I actually think it rides better than it did before with the new suspension and shocks. I do think I'm going to end the video here. I'm going to divide it into a 2-part series. Part 2 will be transmission, transfer case, and shift linkage, which is a lot easier than you might think. I will show you one thing very quickly that I did already install. It's not hooked up or anything yet, but the floor mounted shifter. Like I said, in part 2 we'll go in depth on how I did it and how the transmission transfer case goes in, as well as the linkage. The wiring is actually already plumbed in the truck for the lights on the dash and to plug into the transfer case. So I'm gonna end the video here. I'll bring you guys back on part 2. Really excited to finish this up. So yeah, part 2 will be finishing it up. We got both drive shafts we got to get yet also, but before then, let's go for a test drive.